So I just gotta say, got it. Yep. So none of this is like YouTubed or anything like that. This is just purely voice, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I think you said we're gonna do something live, beyond this.
That's
Is that what you
another
said?
thing. So
Okay.
that's fine. That's fine. So
All
we're
right.
going to
You lead
start
the way.
now, okay?
You got it.
All right. So Ryan, thank you so much for coming on my show, One for the Road. It's an absolute joy to have you on. Thank you so much for joining me. How are you, mate?
I am doing absolutely wonderful. One for the road. It was usually about 30 or 40 for the road and then a 3-day bender. So let's get rocking and rolling, strutting and strolling there, Davey.
I know, mate. You're a man after my own heart. I just dread to think if we met when we were drinking, but we're not now. So that is the huge bonus. So I love to
Absolutely.
wind it right the way back, mate. There's so much that you have to say. But let's start off as you growing up. Where did you grow up, and what led you on to your career in hockey, ice hockey, and let's go with it.
Well, I'll tell you, I am a nature boy at heart. I grew up in the mountains in North Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. And that was my playground growing up. My grandfather was really in tune with nature, so he taught me those divine laws of nature at a very young age. He was subconsciously programming my mind with just the way the ecosystem worked in with the trees and the way the fish flowed up through the river of the majestic Capilano that I grew up with, very close to all the Aboriginal native culture. And hockey being Canada's sport, so to speak. I was either in nature or playing street hockey with my friends outside my parents' house, or on the ice at the age of 2. It was like I was born with a hockey stick in my hand. So my dominating dream growing up was to be the best hockey player in the world. And I was just a big dreamer. My wall was like one big vision board of Wayne Gretzky, Mario Lemieux, all the best of the best. And I would go to bed at night and I would visualize myself playing with these heroes of mine. And step by step along the way, I left home at the age of 15, probably a little bit too early for this kid, as I wasn't really developed emotionally. And up until that point, I had no real issues with drinking, drugging, or whatsoever. My dad, he pushed me hard. He pushed me really, really hard. He was a Canadian national high jump champion that won. He didn't win. He actually was the first Canadian to jump 6 feet in the high jump. He went to the Olympic trials and blew his knee out. So his dream fell short. And after that, he got a really, he had a very successful business career, but he was really trying to live vicariously through his son, maybe pushing me a little bit too much. And, I just don't think that kids or anybody should be pushed at something that they really love to do. So I took a lot of weight on top of me. The skill and the talent was all there. But I was always kind of afraid to let my dad down. And that first year away from home was really tough. Being so connected to nature and growing up in the mountains, and having those friends that I enjoyed so many good times with. Now I find myself thrown out to the wolves. I'm this young kid. I'm playing on a team with mostly 18, 19, 20-year-olds. I just turned 16. And with the hockey culture, it's, if anybody any of your listeners want to look up the hockey culture, it's decrepit. It really is. Like, it's glamorous on the outside. And, you become a local celebrity in these small towns, growing up in junior hockey, which is the gateway to the professional ranks. And it's just revolved around drinking and sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And I was just like, I'm just trying to fit in. I'm trying to fit in with the older guys, the older crowd. And, I was a pretty boy, so to speak. The coach didn't like that too much. He thought I was a spoiled brat. And I didn't know how to speak up. And I just, I took a lot of this, it was a lot of abuse. And it was very, very difficult. It was like I didn't want to drink, but next thing you know, I found that, one led to two, led to three, led to next thing I know, I'm the biggest party or gong show on the team. And, all the older guys like that I was able to bring the young gals around. And it's just that culture, like I said, it was sex, drugs, rock and roll, just like a rock star. That's kind of what the hockey personality was. So I took on that identity that wasn't me. It was a false persona, so to speak. And it was I got to the point where I was so scared to go into the dressing room. My coach would make me hit a burlap bag until my knuckles bled. Skates thrown at me, Vaseline in my gloves, urinated on, Jiffy marker, you name it. Drinking into blackouts, made fun of. I mean, you name it. I'm not trying to play the victim here, but this is the sad reality of that culture. And 5 years in junior, living in, I think it was close to a dozen different households along that journey of junior hockey. I finally turned professional at the age of 20, but by that time, a game which I love so much, that canvas, which was like art to me, became really a nightmare. And it was like I was just going through the motions, and talent can only take you so far. I suffered a lot of injuries along the way, concussions, broken probably 50 plus bones, probably more. All my hands have been busted up, broke my nose 4 times that I know, all fake teeth, even though I got a good smile, eh? But, what can I say? I've met some of the most amazing people in the game, but my fondest memories really are off the ice, with those characters. And I'll tell you, they're characters. And, I'm very close to a lot of the boys still that I met along the way, 30 plus years relationships, through the professional ranks, junior, you name it. And, the hockey community is very tight. Just like the sober community, it's very similar. It's like every hockey player I played with has the drinking problem. It seems like it's like at least 95%, but it is what it is. And I'm, eternally grateful that that sport taught me a lot of lessons. I believe that every single person that we meet, every single situation and circumstance, the cause and effect of life, gives us an opportunity to grow through those lessons that we can pay it forward to other people. So, you know what? My career was cut short due to what we're going to get into with the marijuana trade. But at the end of the day, you know what? I wouldn't change anything for nothing. It's given me a platform to be able to speak my truth, talk to younger kids. It's given me the opportunity to be of service to humanity beyond the rooms of AA, beyond sobriety and all that kind of stuff. I think, and I say this, I don't want to say, I humbly say this, but I say this with a deep knowing that because I've experienced a lot, it gives me the understanding to understand the so-called misunderstood.
I really get that, mate. And, a lot of people, they go, I wish I would have given up 10 years ago and whatever. But there's part of me, like what you've just said, that I'm grateful that I got to my age because I learned so much in that period. The decade between my 40 and 50 was horrendous. A lot of solitude, a lot of depression. But I think since I've given up from there, I've learned that I needed to be there to be who I am now. And that's what I'm grateful for. I've really learned from that. And I'm hoping like you that I can pass it on to other people so we can help them with this terrible addiction. But yours was drugs and alcohol, right? Because mine was alcohol.
Oh God, you name it. It was a drug buffet every night, every night of the goddamn week. And, so, I mean, professional hockey, it was cut short due to adversities and some decisions that I made. And, I was, playing in the United States of America. I met a lot of connections down there at parties. The hockey players were partying with the drug dealers and the rock stars and the its and what's and so-called, the somebodies that are everybody's. I don't I look at everybody as equal. But back then, fueled on ego, I was playing 2.5 hours away from Canada in a place called Tacoma, Washington, and BC bud, which is marijuana. It's kind of a world famous plant that's now legal. One of my blokes came down over a weekend and he shoved about an ounce of weed of this the notorious BC bud into a deodorant uh, uh, cap.
Yeah.
And, back then the borders were really lax. It was easy to get it across the border, especially that small amount. Brought it to the party, and it was actually at the University of Washington. And so all these guys are like, where'd you get that? Like, we can't get that kind of stuff here. I mean, now the US is like kind of on the leading edge of like, the whole marijuana movement and whatnot. And this one guy comes up to me, he's like, you can get that? And I was like, oh yeah, I can definitely get that. It's kind of easy. And at that time, no one was doing the big, cross-border jumps. If you had a connection down the States to say unload 10, 15, 20, 50 pounds or whatever, you're running into winning the lottery every week. And he's like, well, I can move as much as you can get of that stuff. And I was like, ding.
Uh,
And, the next thing I know, I'm, 19 years old. I come back to Vancouver, and I got him hitting me up, other guys down in the States, and I was able to get my hands on it. Started with 1 pound, 1 pound turned into two, turned into five, turned into 10. And, even during my hockey career, it just kept, manifesting, where it was like I was making more money in, one day than I was in 2, 3, 4, 5 months of hockey.
yeah.
And I realized that, I could have done this in anything in life, but it was an opportunity that fell on my lap. And, obviously National Geographic portrayed me as the king of weed. I don't know about that. I mean, at one point I was buying 80% of the marijuana in British Columbia, which is a lot. Planes, Cessna planes, helicopters, boats, kayaks, Zodiacs. I mean, I had fully encrypted Blackberries and a server over in Costa Rica. Probably 200 plus people working for me on both sides of the border, fueling our sales channels all through down to Los Angeles, Chicago, New York. Our best year of business, and I was, at the top of the food chain running this whole, empire, so to speak. We brought in over $100 million worth of currency, of US currency, trading for, that blessed plant marijuana that, it is a healing agent for a lot of people. I was never a big marijuana smoker. It was, for me, it was, alcohol and cocaine and MDMA was kind of the big deal. And, it was one of those things that just kept growing. And, rigs and, I mean, it was, my mind, I was so resilient at that age that I used the philosophy of success, however you make that out to be. To me, success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal, doing something worthy. But to me, at that point, it was money. Fueled on money, ego, and greed. I was a nice guy hockey player that hung out with the gangsters. And, I guess that personality kind of shunned through, and I just kept meeting connection after connection, and it just got bigger and bigger. And then in the year 2000, I got ripped off by a fair weather friend, so to speak. I think he was a little jealous because he saw the amount of money that was coming into my vortex, and he peeled me for about 275,000 worth of marijuana at one of my safe houses. They did a jacking kick in. They kicked in the doors, and I get a phone call at 5 a.m. At that point, one of our trade routes was I had a bushwhack through the mountains about 2.5 hours outside of Vancouver, and I had dirt bikes on the other side of this fence. Full on walkie talkies on both sides and whatnot. And he was one of my drivers, calls me up, and he's like, our safe house got broken into. It's gone. It's all gone. And I just freaked out. My partner at the time, none of the guys that I was working with knew my partner. He was very, high up. so to speak, with the triads. And, I was so scared. I was young and dumb and full of adrenaline, and didn't sleep for 3 days after that happened. Guns were pulled out. I had to put that to, like I was good at being able to kind of mend fences, always having to put out fires, anxiety ridden, and just like, oh my God, is this really happening? And I took it upon my shoulders. I said, look, we can make this money back in one run. And he was like, okay. I'm like, I'll do the hike with these guys. And at this point, it got to the point where I was just running the ship. I wasn't actually having to like take the stuff across the border myself. In the beginning, the first run I did, I had my hockey bag in the back of a Jeep. Then it went into, putting 10 pounds into the back of a tire, then modified gas tanks underneath the Ford F-150, blueberry farms, at the side of the border. I mean, you name it, I thought of it. Helicopter aerial maps connecting A to B. I mean, it was like my job was just masterminding the alliance of marijuana, shooting across the good old Canadian USA border. And on this fateful day, 2000, year 2000, September 17th, it was pouring rain. It was snowing up high in the mountains there. So we got just drenched, and I just knew it. Like my intuition the night before was just like, streamlining through my consciousness. Should I do this? Oh my God. I could just feel something happening, but I felt if I didn't do it, then something really, really bad was going to happen. And, I guess that curse became a blessing. I got nailed on the other side of the border with 103 pounds of high grade marijuana. Guns drawn to the heads, helicopters overhead. The DEA nailed us hard. The cuffs were thrown on, and I couldn't barely move my wrist. It was not nice. Dogs were barking, and next thing I know, I'm loaded into a van, shot off to the county jail for 8 days, wondering how long am I going to be locked up. I had no idea of the ramifications, because in BC it was so accepted. And I said to the gentleman who was actually, I got cuffs behind my back, and then after the interrogation, thrown into a jumpsuit and into this small little county jail with, crackheads and meth heads and whatnot. And I'm just this jacked up dude on steroids, like thinking I'm the king of swing. Now I'm scared to death on like, how long am I going to be doing in jail? What am I going to say to my parents? I've thrown my hockey career right out the door now. And I literally felt like I was in hell.
Mm.
And yeah, so
How old
the
was
legal,
you?
I had just turned 23 at
Bloody
that
hell.
time.
So
So
you
I
was
was
a
young.
pro hockey player then as well. You was
Yeah,
doing
I
all
was 20.
this while doing the hockey.
I was. And it was all, like I said, it was all fun and games until the games became, um, the bell rung in my head, like, okay, I'm involved in serious organized crime here. And I was, kind of laughing my way to the bank thinking like, oh no, but I'll just do this for like a few years while I'm playing hockey. I'll be able to put away a couple $1,000,000. I mean, I made my first $1,000,000 in the marijuana industry when I was 20. And it was kind of just like, this is just the way it's supposed to be. And I didn't really care about hockey anymore. So it was like, okay, I'll have early retirement, be able to travel the world, which I did. I've been very blessed to experience the culture of 70 countries in my life. And be careful what you ask for, I always say, because I remember
Yeah.
saying to my mom, I was like, this is just a medium for, I'm like, I'm going to live my life to the fullest, and I'm going to travel the world, and I'm going to see and do everything possible in this life. And I did. And prison just became one of those things. I guess that was one of the prices I had to pay. And, 2 years in a maximum federal penitentiary without seeing the light of day was absolutely one of the hardest things that I ever had to deal with. And I was in there, obviously the Mexican mafia, white power, the Crips, the Bloods, so you're in there with all the bikers and whatnot, just, gangs. And, the stuff that you see in there, it's worse than the movies. It really is. And I know, I don't want to disregard National Geographic. They're all about entertainment. I got flown to London after I rode across Canada for mental health awareness and addiction. And, they really wanted my story, but they glorified it. And, 21 hours in front of camera with NG, God bless them, but they used an hour. And, a lot of that story wasn't able to be told. So, I learned so many valuable lessons in the slammer, so to speak, the Crowbar Hotel.
Oh my
And
God, that is my worst nightmare. I've got
oh
these things.
God,
I think I could handle most things in my life. I really do. But whether I was a lifer in a previous life or whatever, I don't know. But prison scares the hell out of me. So when you say you was in that maximum security prison, which
yeah.
you no doubt deserved to a certain extent, and 2 years really, what I
Yeah.
mean was your sentence like double that, and you would just let out good behaviour, or
Well, I got out on good behavior. The minimum mandatory, at first I was told I was going to do 10 years and I was just shitting bricks, to be honest with you. I mean, I was young and I'm like, my life's over. What am
yeah,
I going to do now? And my parents were really embarrassed at the same time. I was the prodigy. I was the kid that was supposed to make it. I
yeah.
was the kid, that went down the rabbit hole. And next thing you know, like I didn't realize that everyone was looking at me with the fancy cars and all that kind of stuff. It was just like, I was like purely living on adrenaline. And
Yeah.
now I'm in this maximum security prison and people are screaming and yelling at me, new fish, you're dead, and all that. And I'm like, I'm trying to stay rock solid and like, trying to be like kind of tough.
Mm.
And, I get thrown into this 8x12, and I was really, really blessed that there was 13 other Canadians that were in the prison with me. They came into my cell immediately, and I didn't shed a tear the whole time I was in there. I just bottled up all my emotions, and I had to put that like outer shell, that outer guard of protection around me, because I didn't want to seem weak, because the people that seem weak in there got
Mm.
preyed on.
Mm.
And like I said, it's like what you see in prison is like, on the TV and whatnot. That's nothing compared to what it really is. I mean, I saw things in there that would make people absolutely, lose their marbles. But the positive of prison was that I cleaned up, I got sober, I had a very clear mind when I was in there. I was angry because I had a daughter down in the United States of America, and they told me, you will never be allowed back into the United States of America again. And that crushed me,
Mm.
because I mean, here's a guy that was, played hockey down in the States, and then, the whole partying. I mean, I'd be up for 3-4 days, wake up on a tarmac in Los Angeles or Las Vegas. I mean, somewhere down the States, and I have an 8 ball of blow in my pocket and a bunch of MDMA or who knows. I just cleared customs. Where are we? Oh, we're in LA. Oh shit. And then we go on a ripper for 6 or 7 days, hitting the Viper Room and all over Los Angeles. And I mean, it was a circus sideshow, but it put me in my tracks real fast when I went to prison. It was humbling. After 7.5 months, basically, of having the blanket over my head,
Yeah.
I met this little Japanese bloke in there. He had 7 aliases. His nickname was, one of them was Tojo. Tojo, George, Macho. We got all kinds of different names we had for this guy. And he was like a little real life Buddha.
Yeah.
And he actually kicked on my cell door. And I was about 7.5 months in, and he said, Phillips, get the hell up, get up. And he was 56 years old at that time. And I was like, what? I'm just taking it easy, George. It's just leave me alone. And he goes, get up, come up to my cell here. And he literally ran that prison with his mind. And he saw something in me. And so I went up to his cell, and he introduced me to all these old timers that he was buddies with. And he said, you know what, kid? He said, just because you're in prison doesn't mean that you have to be a prisoner of your own mind.
Wow.
So I'm going to challenge you to something. He goes, I want to start teaching you about tuning into high and finer vibrations of the universe. I mean, I think at this time, I mean, I'm kind of like, I knew that we created our own reality at a real young age. I remember talking to my mom. I didn't know about law of attraction, law of vibration, or anything like that, or like the layman terms. But I remember telling my mom at age 11 on the way to hockey practice, I was like, Mom, you know that we create our own reality, right? And I remember breaking that down to a T. And then obviously, years later and all this stuff like goes on in your life, life experience. Now I'm with this Japanese guy after, being depressed and resting all day and scared and weird and whatever the heck, he started teaching me how that whatever we think about, we bring about, literally teaching me the law of vibration subconsciously while I was in there. And my mind was so attuned because I was clean. I was, like everything had been kind of cleaned out. Like I was using hard before we went in there. It was like, I was a circus sideshow. And we started writing poetry. And I figured out real quick that I could actually write poetry. The first one we did was on mountains. And then we started building on that. And he became like a mentor, a teacher while I was in prison. And, we stayed in touch for years after that. Sadly enough, but it is what it is. Prison's like college for criminals. And I just got more connections while I was in there. And like I said, I was angry because, not being allowed back to the States again was going to destroy the fact of me seeing my daughter, being a
Yeah.
father. And, I was like, okay, well, when I get out, I'm going to be an actor. Okay. Because, oh no, I'll just go play hockey in Europe. Because, no, I'll actually, I'm just going to start sending more weed across the border because now I have more connections, more ways, and I've come up with a lot more ideas. And so at night, when I wouldn't sleep a lot in there. I would sleep with one eye open, and I would have these headphones that I got off the commissary. And you find out who your real friends are real quick when you end up in a joint like that. Literally, the joint, not the smoking one, the one that you have to go into for being a
Yeah.
bad
Yeah.
boy.
Yeah.
And I would literally close my eyes, and I remember this guy that he was one of my cellmates. I had 8 cellmates while I was in there during a 2-year span, close to 2 years. He was like, you're going to be like one of the biggest bud dealers ever. You're going to be one of the biggest guys. Like when you get out, you're just going to start doing this and that. And I was like, I don't know, man, whatever. But it was something that I knew that I could do good. And since I wasn't allowed back to the States again, it was like all this stuff. It started falling on my lap, and I would start manifesting in there. He was like, you're going to be doing 500 pounds a week. And so I started thinking about that. And like, I'd be listening to music, and I was the big party guy outside of that before. So I'd see myself partying, traveling the world, all this money coming in. And sure as all shebanga, 2 or 3 days after I got out of prison, there was a card from this guy that I met in there. His name was the Pengy. That was his nickname. He'd be like, how you doing, kid? And he was older, and he really trusted me. And I had this card waiting at my parents' place. And after getting the whole speech, you need therapy, you're
Mm.
institutionalized, da da da. I was, no, I'm not. I'm fine. This is before, this is when payphones were still a thing. There was a card there. It said, Dear Ryan, call this number from the Pengy. So I went down, got a calling card. He was in Portland, Oregon, in the United States at the time. I get on the blower with him, and I was like, Pengy, I'm out. And he goes, thank God, kid. And I'm like, so what's up? And he goes, tomorrow at the Dover Arms Hotel. It was this old strip joint just outside of Vancouver. He goes, you're gonna meet this buddy of mine called Silver Fox. And I
Me.
was like, yeah. Oh, you. Yeah. No. Yeah. Oh, I thought you dyed your hair blonde there, Dave. Anyways, so I'm just like, I'm walking into the unknown here, right? And but I was full of piss and vinegar. I had no idea what the heck was in store. He told me in there that he would send money up to buy product instead of me having to buy product of my own to send down. And plus, I was broke. I came out, I had no money. I lost it all.
Mm.
And that next day, I go out to the Dover Arms Hotel. I meet this guy in his 70s. He hands me a tire out of a Range Rover, and it was like literally a 1 minute transaction. Hey man, how you doing? Nice to meet you. You're friends with Charlie the Pangy. Da da da. Gives me this big tire that I can hardly carry. I throw it into the back of my truck with my buddy, and he goes, "The directions are inside the tire." And I'm like, okay. So I tried to get the tire open with a buck knife. That didn't work. And it just so happened I knew a mechanic that had done a little bit of work for me before with modifying these gas tanks and whatnot. I did have a lot of connections with a lot of things. And we opened the tire. There was 280,000 US in currency. And it said, have 100 pounds ready for 2 days down the road. You'll be meeting this guy at this place. And well, so that was pretty easy. Grabbed the money and turned it into Canadian currency, flipped it over with the exchange, made a quick 80,000 bucks, 2 or 3 days out of jail. And that kept going on. I started building it. And then 3 months later, I was a millionaire again. And then it just kept building. It was crazy. And, he would come up here and we'd party. And I mean, he was really into heroin at the time. Wasn't my thing. I did try it twice in my life. Never banged it, but I did try it. And yeah, it was just one of those things where it was like, okay, that now I guess this is what I'm doing. And then it's just growing, literally growing in abundance. And not a lot of people had the connections that I did.
Mm.
So yeah, it just like really just got huge real fast. But the bigger it got, the more dangerous it got. The more gangs that started figuring out that I was behind this massive operation, having to, get, my accountant involved. He quit his job. My accountant quit his job to work for me, putting together all the numbers and the books with the whole weed thing because we were bringing in so much currency. I didn't even know. I couldn't count. I didn't know how much money I had. Our best year of business, we pulled in over $100 million worth of marijuana business. I mean, I couldn't count it that fast. So,
Can I
pretty
ask you a
safe.
question though, Ryan? It's like,
Absolutely.
do you think because you weren't allowed back in the States to see your daughter, do
Mhm.
you think that's what changed it for you? That you had that 2 years in the slammer, and you
Yeah.
said that you learned such a lot, and you was in touch with vibration and stuff, and then you come out and realize you couldn't go back in. Do you think if you had have gone back in and seen your daughter, that things would be very different?
Um, I really believe that everything happens for a reason and everything's in synchronization.
Mm,
And I had to learn what I had to learn what I had to learn. And complete humility really is where I stand today. And, it gave me the medium to be able to take care of her from afar. I was able to take care of her mom. She grew up with having everything that she ever needed as a young girl, as a young child. Her mom was able to bring her up here, not so much, but I got to see her a little bit. It was very sad every time I had to say goodbye. And
mm,
and this is at a point where I'm at the height of the game. Like, I'm pulling in, yours truly was pulling in sometimes $500,000 a week cash.
wow.
And my spending habit was out of control. It was like easily 150 to 200,000 a month I was spending on just partying. You
Mm,
know, I was paying for all my friends, and it was like my real friends, right? None of those people are in my life today.
no,
Not one. They're
that's
all
the
gone.
thing.
All that money's gone.
Yeah.
The minute I made a decision to actually change my life after it got so big, the threats on the life, the lie detector test, being accused of stealing, hundreds of kilos of cocaine when I wasn't even in that business. But it was like the minute that people found out how much money I had, I became a target. I had a target on my back.
Mm,
I did have a wrecking crew behind me that protected me, but no one's untouchable in this world. Nobody. Pablo Escobar got smoked, right? So what would make Ryan Phillips any different?
mm,
And it got so big, and there was so much damage that happened that it was just something innately inside me. I think it was the addiction. So I know it. I was drinking out of control, masking and bearing and suppressing all my emotions from
mm,
past.
mm,
And I crossed the threshold. It became where, the Ibizas and the Cancuns and all these, the biggest parties in the world and the Crystal and all this crap just meant nothing anymore. And no amount of money could ever fill me up. All the mansions, all the cars, all
mm,
this, the crazy, like, the ego, it was just that pain body was hurting so bad but it was telling, my inner guidance system, that internal compass, so to speak, was just screaming at me that I was meant for more, to
Mm.
give back to humanity through my adversities, through the teachings that I'd learned along the way, with the abuse, with everything that I'd been through. And I'm not playing victimization here whatsoever. I am here in this world, in this time-space reality, to be of divine service to the people of the world who are suffering in silence in any way. I know my purpose. I know that. So, marijuana dealing and sending or whatnot. I mean, I never sold a pound of marijuana in Canada. Everything went southbound. It taught me a lot. It taught me a lot about business, people, relationships, trust, and basically, getting to know who the hell Ryan really is,
Mm.
beyond physical form. Like, we're just a spirit inside a physical body, to be honest with you. That's my belief. And so being able to actually have that power of knowing that comes through our consciousness, knowing that we can create from the formless substance, I mean, there's one substance really that creates everything, but, basically thoughts become things, and powerful things at that, especially when they're mixed with definiteness of purpose and a burning desire to be, do, or have. And at that point in my life, when I got out of the game, all I wanted to do was be of service. And a book fell on my lap. The Secret had just come out in 2007. And I was like, God, okay, I've been living the law of attraction my whole life. I like really get this whole deal. And I wrote down, after picking up a book from a gentleman named Bob Proctor, who actually forwarded a book that I wrote. I said, I am going to meet Bob Proctor, all this kind of stuff, whatever. So everything I wrote down always came true. Because I believed it. Whatever, the mind can conceive and believe, the mind can achieve. And so I wrote down my dream at that point. After I got out, I was very blessed. I had all these properties and money still to do whatever I wanted to do. I just wanted to be happy and away from all this BS that was so dangerous, losing 50 plus friends to murder. I don't know how many countless people I lost to overdoses and whatnot. God bless AA, NA, the rooms, the fellowship, the camaraderie that I met, in those early days of sobriety. Yes, I have relapsed in my 15 years of recovery, but, I stand strong today, just over 5 years sober, that I can really look back and say, I know why I relapsed, because I had to learn more lessons. And today I don't even have the slightest inclination, even though I don't sleep a whole lot, to pick up any drink and go hard, because I was a double fister and put more nose pack in my beak than probably Tommy Lee. Actually, I shouldn't throw him under the bus. He was a great rock star. But,
You know what, Ryan? It's like this whole conversation is I'm worn out because it's chaos. It's absolutely chaos, but it's got a
yeah,
beauty to it as well because of what's come from it. And we spoke the other day on the phone, and I sensed immediately what an absolute great guy, an honest, lovely guy you are, just by 2 minutes of us chatting. And that's why I wanted to get you on today, because what's come from all that and your chaotic life and your drugs and your prison and your hard drinking and parties is the service that you do give back now. And I'd really, really love to start to talk about that for what you've done since you've stopped all that is incredible.
it's sometimes I have to pinch myself like it's just a big dream. And because I believe that dreams can be transmuted into physical reality quite quickly. And it's all about the biology and the power of belief with that mind of ours. Even though I've had many concussions, maybe they knocked me into some sort of sense too on a vibrational level. And uh, you know um after reading Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, there's principles in that book, 13 principles to be, do, or have whatever you want. And the main principle that caught me, that Bob Proctor put out there, he said, get a card. It's called auto suggestion, the medium for influencing the subconscious mind. and the subconscious mind is obviously, for anybody that's in psychology or not, over 10,000 times more powerful than the conscious mind. So through repetition of affirmations, I got this card, and I wrote on the card, I said, I am in the present moment so happy and so grateful for being allowed back in the United States of America again to see my daughter. And I would read that card as it said. I had to blend the emotions, because we're driven on the emotions of love, sex, and romance. And being able to blend those emotions in together with absolute belief and certainty would actually transmute itself into its physical reality. And so what I did is, I must have had 7 or 8 of those cards over a 2-year duration. They'd wear out. I would read it when I was on the potty. I'd read it in the shower, but I would read it with so much emotion that next thing I know, I just started vibrating at this level where I was attracting all these people into my life. I met all those people from The Secret. I met them all. The secret is no secret. The secret is whatever the mind can actually put out there and broadcast. The mind's a broadcasting and receiving station for the vibration of thought. So the more I put it out there, it would come back in its physical manifestation very, very quick. So, I read that card over and over and over and over again. Then I find myself I'm in Southeast Asia doing a film on happiness. And here's a guy, ex-hockey player, ex-marijuana smuggler, that's made a few mistakes along the way. And I'm all of a sudden, I just, my heart opened. I have this open heart, and all I want to do is give and be of service. And on the back of that card, I put serving others, giving back, love, faith, like all those positive, those positive words that have a vibration to it. And I just, next thing, like I said, I'm in Laos, this small little city. Laos is a country, but I'm in this little city called Luang Prabang. Nice name, eh? Luang Prabang. And so I'm skipping rope outside this bungalow, and I get a phone call from an actress friend out of Los Angeles. And she saw what I was doing on Facebook at the time. And I just actually got on Facebook again. I always take these social media breaks. Sometimes they can be for years. And, I was doing a project. So I was like, what, I'll go back on Facebook. You never know. And, I'm just, talking to people. And she's like, Ryan, I see what you're doing over there in Southeast Asia with happiness. This film, she's like, this is incredible. Because I was doing these little short little 3-minute videos, and I'd throw them on the Facebook. I wasn't like blasting it out there, but I did intend on this film being watched worldwide. I did. And she's like, I'm actually riding my bicycle with 20 other riders across Cambodia to help raise awareness for the eradication of human trafficking and child sex slavery. And I had absolutely no clue about that cause. I didn't realize the validity of it, the disgustingness of that trade, that business. And she's like, would you like to ride with us and show the positive aspects? And I was like, absolutely. Anything to do with kids, anything to do with giving back. If we can show the positive aspects of making change and being global change agents in this world, I'm all in. And so I'm thinking all these people that are going to be cycling across the country of Cambodia are like pro cyclists, and I hadn't been on a bike since I think I was like 10. And so I fly out the next day from Laos to it was Phnom Penh. Phnom Penh was the capital of that's the capital of Cambodia. And I was like, I got to train for we had 3 weeks until we had to do this ride. And I'm on the bicycle every day, just pedaling and pedaling and pedaling and trying to get my butt in shape. And sure enough, it came bike day. I met some of the most incredible people in my life that I'm still very connected with. And we rode with all our hearts and, across the country of Cambodia. which is so beautiful. I met so many amazing souls, all these kids, jumping out of nowhere. And it was just love at its highest form. I kept reading that card every single day, and the footage that we got was just so incredible as well, to show the love, going into 5 different shelters, and just, the tears were streaming down the eyes. And just, when you're doing something like that too, it's like the people that you're doing it with, you become very close to those people in in a very short amount of time, because you're doing it right from your heart, man.
Mm.
And it reminded me so much of my own youth too, like, nothing to that extent, but I could really relate with the abuse, because there was a lot of abuse in my life, you know and sure as all the dream that I put out there and broadcast on that card. God, I met the head of the organization. Her name was Somali Mom, and she had a shelter that she had built with the help of Barbara Walters, Queen Latifah, and that it was called the AFASTEP Center, and it housed probably 700-800 kids at the time. And she kind of got breath of that she got wind of that I was coming in and what I was doing. We got to be very close friends, and the Department of Homeland Security found out that I was doing this ride. So now the DEA finds out that Ryan Phillips, one of BC's and Canada's biggest marijuana smugglers, is riding across Cambodia for kids and human trafficking and child sex slavery, which is like a global epidemic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I finished the ride up, and it was a 3-week ride. And I realized at that point how much awareness can come through action, and how many hearts you can hit along the way. And I flew out after this little party we had. It was like a celebration party. I'm sober at the time. I'd been sober for quite a few years. And I'm in Chiang Mai, Thailand the next day. Flew out that night. 6 a.m. I get a phone call. It was my dad. And he goes, open up your email. So I opened up my email, and I remember like it was yesterday. It said, today we can rejoice as a family, as you have been granted access as a humanitarian back down to the United States for business and for pleasure. And I just broke. I was like, oh my God. So I auto-suggested myself for 2 years,
Yeah.
and I transmuted my dreams into physical reality through those principles that I read in
Oh,
Think
that's
and Grow Rich.
amazing. That is.
Yeah. So, and then at that time, I was so excited. I called, Dad. We had a little chat, bawling my eyes out, and it was like, okay, now it's time to go surprise my daughter. And that we did. We set up a camera outside the house. She had no idea that I'd be
Oh
knocking on
my
her
God.
door.
Yeah. I've seen it.
You
It
saw
is
it. Yeah,
so
you can't fake that
moving.
shit, right?
Literally, it's so moving. I'll tell you what I'll do, mate, because there's going to be people on here going, I want to see it. So I'll put a link on the show notes after. But what happened then? You knocked on the door.
I knocked on the door, and with a rose. I had
Yeah.
a big long stem rose, of course. And Sadie, my beautiful daughter, she's actually a year sober. She's gone down some pretty dark times the past 4 years. But at this point, she was 12 at the time, and she literally thought she saw a ghost. She looked at me for about a second, and then she just jumped into my arms. And I tell you, I mean, spinning her around, gave her, and just, it was like, it was like just the dream came true. I was,
Yeah.
all that it was, and it all came through divine service and that power of belief. And at that point, I never looked back. I woke up every single day, just being so grateful. And I asked, same, like, even though I only slept a little bit last night, how can I be a service to the world today? And
Mm.
then what's going to show up is what's going to show up. And what I'm going to do is what God intends me to do through that pure divinity. And, I did that ride the next year. And I've done a lot of work over in with that, the whole sex slavery stuff, which is awful. I never took a public speaking course ever in my life, but I was very grateful. I was asked to do a TED talk on that subject. So, being in the trenches and riding and pulling kids out of brothels and all that kind of stuff led to doing a TED Talks on it. Next thing I know, I'm on a stage in front of 10,000 people. I think you could hear a pin drop that day in at the theater where it was. I don't think there was a dry eye in the crowd. I forgot the whole speech that I was going to say, and I pretended that all the people that were in the auditorium theater at that time, I pretended that they were the children that I rode for.
Oh,
And it just flowed. It came out. I was the last speaker out of 16.
my
I mean,
God.
all these other people were so prepared. I'm sitting there and, ready to go up on stage. The last lady that was out there, she'd been speaking for years and years, and she blew her speech. She comes off and she goes, "Oh my God, I'm so nervous. There's so many people out there." And I just took this big, deep breath and I just marched on stage and I was like, "I'm doing this for the kids." And, it happened. And, I just basically, realized that, just everything that I would write down, everything that I would intend, just that power of belief and how powerful our minds can be. And that we can rise above adversity and truly become something that is greater than what we have actually been in the past. We can create different versions of ourselves in the quantum field, so to speak, too, not just in this 3D reality we live in. Really tap the source of that infinite intelligence or that inner genius that we have inside of us. We all have deep reservoirs of genius that reside from within. And when we can expand that creativity, it's that infinite spirit that really just, it expands outwards, and we attract through the vibrations of the ether those people, places, things, and circumstances that allows our life to flow in a certain way that we intend. So with
Now,
that being said,
you saying all that to me is really, I've got goosebumps, right? And my wife will have even bigger goosebumps because she is so into this. You know,
I follow your wife on Instagram. I think she's amazing. Both of
she
you guys are.
Thank
Yeah.
you, man. So honestly, it's what I believe in, and we're on an incredibly smaller level than your TED talk. I've never been trained to do public speaking or anything, right? And I spoke in a pub a few weeks after becoming sober in front of everyone drinking, and I was talking about not drinking, right? And I was the second to last one on, and I was absolutely shitting myself, right? And I got up there, the speech that I had planned all went out the window, and I thought, well, I'm here for a reason to tell my
Yeah.
journey and where I am today. And afterwards, it blew up. People come over to me, and they were like incredibly open, so warm to me, and I thought, God, do you know what? I got a message to give out here. I really have got a
Absolutely.
message. And then recently I talked in a college and I felt the same, but I thought, why am I doing this? Not for me or my ego. This is to help these kids live a better life and see it for what it actually is, And then everything changed for me. And when I got up there again, could hear a pin drop. And it was like, I am exactly where I am supposed to be now. This is what I'm meant to be doing, and that's why I'm so passionate about this podcast, things I do. I really hope that doesn't come across as anything to do with ego at all, because I'm
Absolutely
feeling
not.
quite grounded, But it's so important, and I'm so grateful, like you said in the beginning, to have had the experience I have in my life to be able to share that and learn and push forward with it, And this is part of my journey as well, like yours, to do what you're doing is
Well, I
part of
love
it.
it. I mean, we're obviously on the same vibe, or else we wouldn't be talking right now. So, this, we're doing a podcast right now, but we attracted each other, obviously, through the great vibration of the
Yeah.
ether out there pulled us together into the swing.
Plus
And
the $500,000 you offered me as well, but we won't talk
oh
about
yeah, I
that.
forgot about that. That we shouldn't tell the audience that you're laundering money for me.
Well,
But
anyway, mate. So what have you got? I mean, you've written a book, right?
yeah, I wrote a book. I produced a film, and I was very, very. I mean, I hate talking about myself. I think I just truly believe, just like you said, it's like if we can just touch one life and pay it forward, and if just one life can be better because we breathe that day, or we whatever it's just it's for me. I take so much, I get so much inner happiness when I can just put a smile on somebody's face in the moment, in that eternal now, so to speak. To me, there is no past, there is no future. We're creating our future in the present moment. So it's like, as we speak right now, we're actually creating our future reality.
Yeah.
So it's when we talk about law of attraction, all that kind of stuff, we have to be very, very careful with the words we speak, because the body's always going to follow the mind. So whatever it's like I said it before, whatever we think about, we bring about. Whatever we focus on expands. So being expansive creatures that are of habit on this planet called Earth, you know, it's like we have to watch what we speak, because like it's, we're speaking into our experience. And, we can either have a great experience in this, physical life, or, we can create a life of misery.
Yeah.
And, it can teeter up and down. So, we have to, we're emotional creatures as well. So it's like, sometimes we have to really, really, get grounded and, watch what's coming out of our yap, because, whatever we speak usually comes true pretty quick, especially these days.
I know,
Um,
mate. Oh, I love
but
your terminology coming out of your yap. I mean,
my
uh,
Yapplestein, yeah,
yeah. But
my
look,
Yapplestiltskin.
you got something really, really brilliant coming up in May, right? Are you riding across
May
Canada?
25th. Absolutely. So, in 2019, first of all, we'll go back to this. So I was misdiagnosed with bipolar about 7 years ago. I had absolutely no idea that I had suffered a lot of concussions due to hockey. I got sucker punched at a bar once, and my head rang off the curb, and I was in an ambulance I was knocked out for 15 minutes. I was lucky I didn't die, because I was double fisting at the time, and I got suckered. But and then about an hour and a half later, on my own reconnaissance, left the hospital, and I had a bill in my nose and double fisting again. Christ, I don't know how I'm still alive. But beyond all that, I realized that obviously from that first ride, second ride, and whatnot, like I said, how much awareness can come through intended action from the heart. And so 2019, I rode across Canada and 4 other countries, all for mental health awareness. 4 in Asia: Thailand, Laos, Cambodia, and Vietnam. Vietnam is such a beautiful country, and I know that they've taken a lot of heat, obviously, because of the war and whatnot, but the people there are just absolutely beautiful.
Mm.
And after I did those 4 rides, I felt a call to duty, so to speak, and a responsibility that I needed to go do my own country, which is the second largest landmass in the world, Canada. It's a big, big country. And I started off in the Pacific, at the tip of the Pacific. And I am not a cyclist, by the way. And we got a film crew, and I rode my bike across Canada, and was very blessed. It got a lot of national attention. I didn't throw it out there wanting to be famous or anything like that, but people did take recognition and whatnot. Whatever. I was able to give a message, but the message was for millions of people around the world, billions now actually, to reach out for help if they're suffering in any way. And at this point, I think it's bipolar still. After the ride, I find out about a year or so later, because I wasn't feeling so hot, and my brain was starting to play some tricks on me. I went for a CT scan. Got some more diagnosis from one of the top neurologists here in Canada, from the Canadian Brain Performance Center, that I'd suffered probably close to 50 plus concussions over the course of my professional sports career, in and out of sports. But there's a few fights in there. Yeah, I admit it. I was a bit of a circus sideshow too, right? So blah, blah, blah. And, so I started getting the right treatment done for the concussions. And so 2019 was the primer, and it was for mental health awareness. Now, I'll be starting on May 25th, going from the beginning, the Terry Fox Pavilion, which is the tip of the Pacific, and I'm going to ride my bike all the way to the other end of the country, and we'll be filming the whole thing. I came up with a name. It's We Can. So
Wow.
we can, and it's going to be a ride for wellness and connecting humanity. And so it's not Ryan's ride at all. This is a ride where everybody can get involved. I want as many people along the way to join in. You know what? I look at this as more as connecting humanity and peace, and really, really eliminating the stigma, which is mental health or mental illness. I don't believe in mental illness. I believe that, obviously we take on, certain belief systems and whatnot. We can go through depressions, but at the end of the day, a lot of these mental illnesses are misdiagnoses, and really, it's just helping the misunderstood become understood. That we all operate a little bit differently, and some of us may just have chemical imbalances. For me, I'm on fight or flight a lot. I'm on the fight because my amygdala, which is the seat of the emotions, got its bell rung so hard that I'm keyed up a lot. But I can also look at that as a power too, because it gives me a lot of energy in the present moment to bolster out that energy stream of like what I want to do, and I just don't give up. And so I'm no saint, but I realized that putting my ego aside, um, this is something I feel called to do on a much bigger level this time. Even though I'm going across Canada, this is a global movement, and getting as much people involved around the world to help with this and be part of is really is the dominating dream right now in this present moment. And it's not going to stop until I start and finish it. Once I'm done Canada, I'll be going across the United States for the exact same purpose. And then once I'm done in the United States, I've actually, the Rotary Club of the world have made me an ambassador. So they want me to do the UK. So
Yes.
I'm more than happy to jump over to your side of the world. And, maybe we'll put you on a sidecar, or you can ride beside me for a little bit, because that'll be just awesome.
Mate, I'm going to join you next to you
Hell
on the
yeah.
bike. I don't want to be on a sidecar. I want to be on a bike next to you, bro.
Okay, great.
Let's do
Awesome.
it.
Let's do it. Hey,
Because do you know
ain't
the
nothing.
irony is that when I stopped drinking, within 7 months, I rode my bike to Paris from London for child slavery.
No way.
Yeah, and we
Oh my
raised
God.
38,000 quid. There was about 12 of us, and it was unbelievable. And some of the stories we heard on the way was like, God help us, like we started at Greenwich, and look, I was 20 stone nearly, 128 kg going up a hill, and everyone whizzed up the hill at 80 kg, and I was like Shrek on the bike. But do you know what? When we
Oh
got to
man.
the Eiffel Tower and that, we sat there and it's like, oh my God, the money we've raised for this is
Yeah.
incredible. And another guest I've had on the podcast, Ollie Ollerton, is ex-SAS. He's been on SAS Who Dares Wins. He did a lot of stuff out in Thailand as well for child slavery. So it's really close to my heart, mate. And mental health as well. So honestly, 100%, I'm going to be getting on that bike next to you.
Awesome. I can't wait. You know what? This is going to be such a beautiful journey. And when you get into the whole spectrum of, say, mental health, you have to put child sex slavery in there as well. I mean, the
Yeah.
psyche of those kids, I mean, the reintegration into society for those children, if they've been saved, a lot of these kids, they die too young. Many of them are servicing up to 20 some odd clients a day. And, I've seen the worst of the worst, especially over there in Southeast Asia. I know it's a global epidemic, even with boys as well. It's not just girls, but a lot of these kids are, 2.5, 3 years old, and they're taking on clients because there's a misperceived notion over there that having sex with a virgin cures the HIV virus. And, so what they do with these kids is, these guys will come in, they have AIDS, they give it to the young child. And, after the kid, they have, fornication, not consented, they sew up the child's hymen, and and then the child is good to go again, unfortunately. And it's a vicious cycle, literally. And so I believe that these cycles that we do, there's no I in team, can have a huge impact with being a global change agents in the world. And I just know that I can't do things on my own like this. I did Canada alone in 2019, and it was lonely. I think I had to do that a lot to conquer my own mind and a lot of my own demons. But this time, I'm so grateful that people are starting to just gravitate. I mean, I haven't even put it out there. I haven't even gone to mass media yet and thrown it out there. But I guess people have been picking up on my thoughts. I got people buzzing me, saying, we should do a ride again. We should do this. We should do that. And, I haven't even got the website up yet or whatever, but,
It'll be all right, mate, because this podcast is now, we're in February now recording this, but when this goes out, it will be before May, right?
Mhm.
So everyone listening to this podcast will then be able to follow your journey. They'll be able to donate. They're going to be able to support you by sharing. I can share, my
Oh,
community
it'd be
can
so
share,
beautiful.
that we need to get this out there. And
Yeah.
when you come over here, it'd be even bigger over here because I'm going to make it one hell of a party. And, and without
Love
the
it.
beer and the drugs, right?
Yeah. Without the
But
beer and the drugs, don't worry. I'm better at doing the Patrick Flatley sober than I am inebriated.
yeah,
Yeah.
I know, mate. But look, honestly, I could talk to you for hours and hours and hours, and I generally try and keep these to an hour. And we've just gone over because you're so
Oh, wow.
fascinating about your journey and your story and your incredible passion for what you do now. I'm
Thank you,
so
David.
grateful, and I'm so grateful we've met because I know that this friendship is going to go on and on and on. I can feel that.
I can too. I feel like I've met a friend for life. Even the first time we spoke, I was like, "There's just something special about David Wilson." And that, then I know your wife's story. The struggles of life is what builds character, and I'm eternally grateful that you had me on. And for all your audience, hello. I send you my infinite love. And it'd be really cool as doing some lives and stuff as I go across the country with all the people and showing the people of the world what we can all do together to make this world a better place.
Yeah.
And that really, at the end of the day, is there anything better than trying to make this world a better place with wonderful people? That's what, bringing people together as a oneness, is something that it's really I think it should be close to all our hearts.
Yeah, I
Connect,
agree totally. And
attached to nothing, connected to everything.
yeah, absolutely. And there's Johan Hari. He's written a couple of books and whatever, and his quote is the opposite of addiction is connection. And I agree with that because when I was addicted to alcohol, I was on a desert island. And when I gave up alcohol, I felt alone because I hadn't shared what I was going through with anyone. And once I started to meet like-minded people like yourself, connect with them, they understood me non-judgmentally, that I started to flourish and grow, and I'm very blessed now to be living the life that I am now, and meeting people like you and the others in the community is just every day I wake up. grateful. I really do. As soon as I open
Absolutely.
my eyes, which, as we know, is early in the bloody morning because we both sleep about 2 hours a night. We found
Well, when you
that.
gave me that message last night, enjoy your 2 hours of sleep, I was like, oh God, here we go. Then it planted that seed.
I know I put it out there in the universe, didn't I? So,
Oh yeah, thanks a
right.
lot.
So to end this, I want you to say, enjoy your full 8 hours of solid sleep, Dave. And then there we go.
Absolutely. So thank you very much, Dave. I was really looking forward to even doing another episode, just like
Yeah,
whatever we can do to make, like I said, whatever we can do just to make a dent in this world to make it a better
absolutely.
place.
Thank
So
you,
infinite
Ryan.
love.
You've
Yeah,
been an
thank you.
amazing guest. Thank you so much, mate. Speak
Much
soon.
appreciated.